hear this said about annualized sports games every year, but this time it has a lot more truth to it than usual. NBA 2K21 is more of the same. That's good in some ways. None of the minor changes have spoiled the exceptional NBA basketball experience on the court. Of course, it repeats the sins of its predecessor as well. Off the court, NBA 2K21 remains a disjointed mess and riddled with noxious pay-to-win microtransactions. The addition of shot stick aiming and a My Career reskin are nice improvements and all, but it's becoming harder to ignore the lack of upgrades to key game modes while the focus on monetization only intensifies. Between the baskets, NBA 2K21 features a handful of small upgrades but is otherwise extremely familiar if you've played it in recent years. The best addition is the new shot stick aiming, which demands the challenge of actually aiming shots rather than just timing them. It's really difficult to master and resets the learning curve for experienced players in a beneficial way. Hitting a green shot, which requires nailing the target in that meter that appears when you hold down the right stick, is tremendously satisfying. This system also provides some much-needed nuance to offense in the paint, especially when you're trying to hit a floater or a crafty layup. Maybe it's because it's one of the few things that feels entirely fresh about NBA 2K21, but it stands out as this year's best addition.
Lillard, that's in there. Anthony with the assist.
One of the reasons the lack of gameplay updates is so frustrating is that a handful of legacy issues remain stubbornly present. For example, the CPU will take the ball and walk into the backcourt for no reason, resulting in a violation. Another issue is that players frequently behave oddly in transition, like LeBron James slowing down for no reason in the middle of a break. Similarly, the CPU is often much too aggressive on double teams, making it far too easy to find open teammates.
Tatum wide open, he fires one. That falls.
This has been an issue for several years, and it's maddening that it's still around. That being said, player spacing continues to improve. Non-controlled players behave more realistically off the ball, and particularly in online play, AI teammates are better at creating space for themselves and making room for stars like the Greek Freak to isolate with more effectiveness. Touches like these showcase NBA 2K21's ability to emulate a real game of basketball, but that smooth simulation makes it more jarring when things go awry. It's unfortunate that nearly everything outside of the on-court experience pales in comparison. This year's My Career campaign, called The Long Shadow, is a colossal disappointment. The story follows Junior, a promising young talent playing in the shadow of his deceased father. In between his journey from high school play to the NBA draft, very little time is spent developing any of the uninteresting characters, and too much is spent on Junior awkwardly chasing after his girlfriend to declare his love like something out of a Hallmark movie. Aside from being able to see college hoops in a video game again, the whole story is disappointing. Thankfully, there's an option to skip the story and head straight to the NBA draft. The rest of the My Career mode is pretty good, if you can ignore the horrible microtransactions that infest its every corner. But of course, ignoring them is easier said than done because NBA 2K21 won't let you look away from its monetization train wreck. Virtual currency is used for everything, from upgrades to attire options, and grinding for it is a pain. My Career has so much potential as a deep create-a-player mode, if only the grinding were a little less tedious. It's a shame that The Neighborhood, a free roam area where you can play pickup online matches and customize your player, is caught up in all the microtransactions. It's now set in Venice Beach, and that's a nice change of pace from last year considering how much time you spend there. The colors are vibrant, the courts look great, and there's something soothing about the cool blue backdrop. It's a lot of fun touring the area, buying new gear, and playing some hoops with others. Meanwhile, it doesn't seem like a coincidence that the modes left untouched by microtransactions have seen no meaningful upgrades. Even though My League has enough features to serve as an excellent simulation, there are so many opportunities to inject it with the life of what makes the NBA so fun to follow, but nothing has been added. And even though 2K has done an impressive job of letting you play as the WNBA, with great likenesses of players like Sue Bird and Natasha Howard, you still can't use those teams in my league for some dumb reason. The best way to play NBA 2K21 is against other people, and that's only emphasized by the gameplay tweaks to this year's iteration. It feels like the skill gap continues to grow between players who were willing to put in the time to learn the mechanics, which is a good thing. However, as has become an annoying tradition, online play remains hit or miss. Latency and crashes are still a problem even on a wired connection. There's also a crashing issue when entering or leaving loading screens in the neighborhood. When it's clicking, NBA 2K21 has some of the best gameplay in sports video game history. But that's been true for several years now, and though this year's iteration improves on a handful of things, most notably the aimed shooting mechanic, there hasn't been much movement. At the same time, it's a shame that 2K's focus isn't on the fun you can have on the court, but instead the money that can be extracted from your wallet off the court in the My Career and My Team modes, which just aren't fun to grind through without paying. Maybe the new set of consoles on the horizon will bring a fresh start for the NBA 2K franchise, but right now it's hard to muster a lot of optimism about the series' future. For more sports games, check out our reviews of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake, Madden NFL 21, and PGA Tour 2K21, and for everything else, stick with IGN.